The NHL 2000s were filled with superstar talent and memorable moments. Many players impacted the game in more ways than one, but some of those stars have gone without notice, and some have just seemed to be flat out forgotten. So we're gonna go back to a time when there were ties, 2 expansion teams, and 6 divisions to take a look at some of the forgotten stars of the 2000s. Heatley started off the decade by getting selected 2nd overall by the Thrashers in the 2000 draft, and started to play as soon as the season began. Heatley would leave a huge impact during the decade, but was most notable during his time in Ottawa. Heatley would post back-to-back 100-point seasons starting after the lockout in 2005, and would also produce 643 total points, 260 being goals. Heatley also took home a Calder Trophy during his time as well, but after his 100-point campaigns, Heatley's numbers began to fall off, thus most likely being the reason he tends to be forgotten. The 2000s were memorable for Heatley as he enjoyed his prime. He was an impactful player that now tends to fly under the radar. It's extremely sad that Heatley tends to be forgotten, as no one will forget his 50 and 07 and almost Hall of Fame career. Hayes began the decade the best way possible, by hoisting the Stanley Cup. He and the Avs won their 2nd cup in franchise history, and Hayes played a big role. However, 2 years later was where Hayes made a name for himself, as in the 02-03 season, Hayes tallied a whopping 50 goals and 48 assists for 98 points, and that was enough for Hayes to take home the Rocket Richard Trophy for scoring the most goals in a single season. Hayes would finish the decade with 657 total points and would continue to play for the Avalanche eventually for his entire career. But perhaps Hayes is forgotten not due to his personal success, but due to his team success, as after the 2000-2001 championship, the Avalanche began to regress as an organization. Nabokov made his NHL debut a year before the decade began, but didn't play his first full season until the 2000-2001 season, and his success resulted in him winning the Calder Trophy for Rookie of the Year. Nabokov would quietly dominate the 2000s as he led the Sharks to the playoffs every single year, despite missing the playoffs in the 02-03 season, and would help the Sharks win the President's Trophy in 2008. Nabokov would also finish the decade with a 239 goals against average and 249 wins out of 492 total games. He'd remain a Shark throughout the decade, but not for his entire career. Perhaps Nabokov is forgotten due to the fact that the team's regular season success didn't transfer into the postseason, as the Sharks were never able to capture the cup during the decade. Alfredsson began his NHL career in 1999 and played for the Sabres during the entire 2000s. Maxim would have a pretty solid career, as during his tenure in Buffalo, he tallied 334 points in 569 games. Alfredsson would play a major role in the Sabres going to back-to-back Eastern Conference final appearances, especially during the 05-06 season, as he'd rack up 51 assists and 22 goals, 73 points overall. Unfortunately, the Sabres would lose in both appearances, but Alfredsson continued to shine, becoming a fan favorite in Buffalo, but perhaps his underrated career tends to be forgotten as he'd often fly under the radar. Simon Gagne would spend the 2000s in Philadelphia, where he would light the lamp like a machine. Although only producing 484 points during the decade, Gagne had an even split between goals and assists with 242 and scored 40 goals twice in his career. His career high would take place after the lockout in 2005, as Gagne would produce 47 goals in a single season. The Flyers would make the playoffs every year except for 2006, and Gagne was a big part of the Flyers' success in the 2000s. But although he impacted his team, he never really left an impact on the league, leading to many to believe that that's the reason Gagne isn't really remembered. Pavel Demitra would end up playing for 4 different teams during the decade and made a significant impact on every team, but he'll mostly be remembered for his time as a St. Louis Blue. Dimitra's breakout year happened in the 02-03 season as a member of the Blues, posting 93 points in 78 games. Dimitra would continue to post consistent numbers throughout his stints in the 2000s. However, him going from team to team during this decade could also be why we don't remember much about Dimitra. He may be forgotten to some, but to others, especially in St. Louis, his impact will be remembered for years to come. Obviously, there's been many more players that weren't mentioned that tend to be forgotten, but that's what also makes the 2000s such an interesting decade. The NHL had such an abundance of talent that it's hard not to forget anyone. What connects the players on our list with those in the league is that they all made an impact in one way or another, whether that be on their team, on their fan base, or on the league. And sometimes, that's all it takes to ink yourself in hockey history. If you think we missed someone from our list, feel free to comment down below, as who knows, your pick may be selected for a part 2 of this subject. There's been way more players who've been forgotten that need to be remembered.